You're listening to Were You Still Talking?
Hey, welcome to another episode of Were You Still Talking? This is Joel Albrecht, and in my studio today I have James Blaine Duhaime. He is a local comedian, which really is impressive to me. I don't know how he does it, or where he does it, or why he does it. We're going to find out all those things today. And I didn't get some of the info that I usually get at the beginning of the show, so I'll kind of let him do the intro. James, tell me a little bit about what are you? I mean, who are you?
Who the heck am I? Hey, thanks for having me on, Joel. It's great to be here. You got a nice, lovely studio. I'm looking forward to having a chat. Yeah, my name is James Blaine. That is my stage name. My real name is James Duhaime. I'm a local comedian. And
yeah, there you go.
And I've been doing it for, about almost 13 years now. So here in Eugene, living the dream.
So not only Eugene, but you go I've seen your schedules. You actually go over the Northwest and.
Yeah, I'm definitely a road comic. I do a lot of professional shows all over the Pacific Northwest. I do a lot of work up in Washington State. I'm up there usually once a month. And of course I do shows, around Eugene as well.
And you actually produce shows here, right?
I do. When I started out, I produced a lot of shows in Eugene. I've gotten away from that now. Most of my shows are on the road. I tend to make more money on the road. So I am in Eugene occasionally. It's always fun to come back.
So you make more money on the road than Eugene. I'm just shocked. How did you start? You started in Eugene.
I did. And I started really late. I was in my 40s, and a lot of comics start for different reasons than I started. I'm a little bit different. I had a 20-year marriage, and my wife passed away from colon cancer, and I had 2 young kids. And I was very depressed at that time. She died in 2011. And for about a year, I felt depression like I had never experienced in my life before. And I was even suicidal. And I got really tired of being depressed. So I thought, kind of out of desperation, really, I thought I'm just going to try comedy. I was always a fan of stand-up comedy. I had never even considered trying it before. But I was kind of desperate at that time, and I needed something besides the psychotropic drugs that they prescribe for depression to kind of get me out of that mindset that you get into when you're depressed. I don't know if people can relate to that out there, but that's why I started. I went out and did my first open mic in, I think it was 2011. So about 13 years ago. Yeah.
Wow. That's interesting. I'm just started watching an Apple TV show about someone who is sort of in that same situation, but then he's also a psychiatrist. So
yeah, there are several comics that start out for the same reasons that I did. And fortunately for me, my very first open mic that I did here in Eugene was the first relief that I had gotten in a long time, because I was taking care of my late wife while she was sick. So there was a long period of time there where I just didn't get a break. And I had 3 minutes that night, and I remember coming off the stage just like feeling like a big weight had been lifted off my shoulders. And for the first time in many, many months, I wasn't thinking about depressing things. I was just worried about, my next joke, if people were going to laugh, and how my set was going,
Wow.
So
what did they prescribe? I have to ask. What kind of stuff?
I tried Prozac at that time, among several other psychotropic drugs that they prescribe for depression, and taking those drugs for me was extremely difficult. Just changed my whole being. I just felt like a zombie, honestly. I just felt like I was wandering around in a daze. And comedy allowed me to kind of get away from those drugs. Not kind of, but get away from them altogether. And I just was able to take my mind and focus it on something positive rather than something negative. And it slowly just sort of turned me around. So that was a very good thing. I also,
Really good. That's awesome.
yeah, it kind of, I tell people that comedy saved my life, and in a sense, it really did. And again, a lot of comics don't go into it that way. A lot of them are just funny people who don't have any issues. For me, I had some issues, and I got my stage name by accident on my first open mic night. My stage name is James Blame, and it's a very easy 2-syllable, very easy to remember.
Mm-hmm.
But I didn't come up with it. I went into my first open mic, and at that time I was drinking pretty heavily, and I wrote my name down to go up on stage, and I didn't write it very well. So the host came out, and he's like, "All right, you're up next, James." And he's looking at it, his eyes are squinting, and he's like, "Blame?" And I go, "Yeah, sure." You know, at that time, I just wanted to get on the stage. And then he announced me as James Blame. And when I came off the stage, the other comics started calling me Blame, and I never corrected them. So I wish I could take credit for my stage name, but it actually came from almost a total stranger.
That's kind of cool, though. I mean, it just came out of, it was like Jake or something. With the stories I hear about comics, I rarely hear about a comic that didn't start with a lot of troubles behind.
Well, there's definitely
really rare. Like, you know, what's his name? Seinfeld. Seems like, okay, maybe he didn't have a checkered past, but every other comic that I've listened to, and seems like they were somehow messed up.
Well, there is a lot of broken people in comedy, and they happen to be extremely funny as well. So,
Mm-hmm.
so it's kind of interesting. But again, we're not all, I mean, there's comics come in all different shapes and form. They don't all have to have my depressing past to drive them to the stage, right?
Right. I just realized, because I'm using Heidi's phone, it has her name on it. Oh well, we won't worry about that too much.
They can call me Heidi for this episode.
If you're listening to this, it won't matter. You'll have no idea.
I'll be Heidi for the day.
Yeah, there you go. Man. Well, I'm glad it helped you, because that's pretty amazing. I'm flipping around. Zoom changed everything again, so I have no idea what I'm gonna see when I take out the video.
That'll be a surprise.
One of my questions was what you like about comedy, but I think you just answered that. So going even further back, how did you get on stage? In other words, what was it? A friend? Did you just see that there was an open mic? Did you know other comedians?
No, excuse me. I had no idea about any kind of comedy scene, so I just looked up a local open mic. And one thing that I could say about what I like about comedy, outside of my personal issues, is I get to work with really, really talented people. And as much as I enjoy going up on stage and doing my thing and connecting with audiences, I mean, that's why I do it. I really enjoy being around the other comics, particularly the ones who just shine brightly in terms of their incredible creativeness. And it's great to be around that kind of energy, and to be around people that are that talented. So I'm a feature comic. I'm not a headliner. So I've opened for a lot of major headliners, and watching them do their craft is really special. And I get it for free.
Yeah, that's nice. So what's like the best place you've been performed in?
Oh gosh, there's been a lot of them. There's been many memorable performances. I've done Oregon Country Fair a couple times. Those are memorable. A lot of people, crazy environment. I did a show up in Washington State in Port Orchard called at a hotel called Manresa Castle, and they have this beautiful lounge there that holds about 130, 140 people. And I did a show there one night, and every night's different. That's one thing I like about comedy. That particular night at Manresa Castle was just magical. Everybody in the lineup really crushed. The crowd had a fantastic time, and that's very heartwarming for me to see the crowd, get their money's worth and then some, and really enjoy the evening. That's special.
So this reminds me of another question I had. How, you said you're not a feature comic. How long is your set, and how long is the feature comic set?
So I'm not a headliner. I am a feature. And usually feature sets go from anywhere from 10 minutes to 30 minutes long. And I've done some headlining in my career, but I don't bill myself as a headliner. I'm getting pretty close to it. One of those things for me, I could have become a headliner years ago, and it just my own personal, idea of when I'm ready is change my, my timeline from what most other comics strive for. I'm just now getting to the point where I feel really very, very comfortable doing feature sets like 30 minutes long, and that takes a lot of work. And I'm working on an additional 20 minutes. And I should probably, if I had to guess, sometime, maybe this time next year, I'll be headlining.
Mm-hmm. Wow. That's pretty exciting, it seems like to me.
Yeah, plus it pays more.
Yeah, it pays more.
So that'll be kind of nice. I like to tell people that I've been doing comedy for 13 years and I've made $15 so far. So, yeah. That's my career is on fire. That's all I'm saying.
Well, but does it pay your bills? Do you have enough? Do you do it enough that it actually...
It pays some of them. It doesn't pay all of them. I'm semi-retired. So I do need the extra money to pay for some of my bills. So it does. It helps me pay some bills. And I'd much rather pay my bills doing comedy than doing some other profession. I can't think of anything I'd rather do.
Oh, hell yeah. Yeah.
Yeah.
It sounds fun to me. I mean, it sounds like a lot of pressure too.
Oh yeah. Comedy is one of the hardest businesses to be successful in. It's extremely difficult to be successful in comedy. There are a bajillion funny people out there, all who want stage time, and it's extremely competitive. And that's why it's hard to make it in the business, because everybody wants to do it. Who wouldn't? I mean, I get paid money to tell people jokes. Like, it doesn't get much better than that, right?
It depends. For some of it, like when I do acting stuff, I do stage, and I've done a lot of, short films and things like this. And
cool.
For me, I've always got other people around me. So, on stage, you've got other actors, you've got someone, you've got a whole crew. When you're doing a film, you're actually just a kind of a prop that talks.
Yeah.
Because you're not going to decide how that comes out.
Right. I've done some film.
You've done all films also. So there's a lot of kind of I don't know, you're not out there in front of a crowd trying to be, you're it. That's always seemed really hard to me. I've always wanted to do a set, but I've been...
Give it a rip.
Yeah. Well, one thing that has stopped me is that I heard it on a podcast, that 3 minutes of comedy takes to do 3 minutes of good comedy, you need about an hour worth of bits. Does that sound right?
Well, I guess I would just say, putting it differently, that it's a lot harder than it looks.
Mm-hmm.
You really have to work hard on writing. You have to work hard on networking, and you have to work hard on everything else that goes with comedy. There are, pivots if you get stuck up there. One thing that comes up over and over again when I talk about comedy is, when people talk about it, is, you're on an island up there. You don't, it's different than music. I mean, you don't have a guitar, you don't have a band around you, you don't have anybody around you. So if you get into a rut up there and things start going sideways, it can be pretty lonely. I remember my very first open mic, I told my first joke, and I mean, it hit like a thud. I mean, there I could hear crickets. There were tumbleweeds rolling across the stage, right? Like, no one was laughing. And I remember thinking, after my first joke, the first thing that went through my head was, this is a lot harder than I thought it was going to be. And it is. Like, you have to really work at it. Now, there are some comics who are just natural, and they don't have to work as hard as others, like me, who, but for the most part, any comic up there that's doing like, a 10-minute set, they've typically have worked on that 10-minute set for 2 to 3 years.
Right. That
when they start out,
people don't see that at all.
Yeah, it's a long process.
I would say you're really lucky to have sort of fallen flat on your first set, because you're going to eventually. So if that happened your first 3 minutes and you kept going, then you got through that.
Yeah, I mean,
kind of cool.
No matter how good or how funny you are going to bomb. Because there are other factors involved in a show that can affect the outcome. So I like to tell people that I'm like a cluster bomb. I have a much wider effect than most comics bombing. I bomb much better than most of my counterparts do. But yeah, it is a part of it. And, when you're bombing, you have to work on your other skills, like how well do you pivot out of that bomb?
Right.
How well do you get the audience back? So those are skills that you do need to develop. So any comic out there, starting out, getting down on themselves about bombing, it's like, no, don't get down on yourself. Learn from it. It can make you a much better comic. It has me. Like I said, I bombed enough to where I'm pretty skilled at talking about the bombing aspect of comedy.
You've gotten good at it.
Yeah. And, also dealing with hecklers, dealing with everything else that goes with comedy. It's not for everybody.
Right.
It's not for everybody.
Right. Yeah, it seems like you end up in a lot of clubs, a lot of dive bars.
Yeah, and you're typically in an environment where there's drinking going on.
Right.
And the most trouble that any comics have out there are with people who get too inebriated. By and large, people are really nice. And one thing I like to say to people is, the great thing about comedy, it's one of the only places I know of where I walk in and everybody in the room is happy to see me. I can't go anywhere else where everybody's happy to see me. Like, no matter where I go, I don't get that response. So thank God for comedy. It is a lot of work, but it is extremely rewarding, for me.
So was there any place that you did comedy, did a set, and you don't even have to say where, that you never want to go back to?
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah, there's several, and usually it's the ones that where nobody's there to see comedy, like nobody knows about it. They feel put upon that they're even having to listen to it, and then if the staff at the venue is not supportive, I've literally had them turn up music over the comedy while I'm on the stage and stuff. So I mean, as a comic, you want to be where people are for sure interested in your product and invested a little bit. It makes the show go so much better.
Well, it's a bit like playing in bands. I think you play in bands also, right?
Yeah. I've never, I am a musician. I'm a singer-songwriter, and I played a lot of local music open mics, in public. But I tried to get a band together, and that's probably why I'm a comic. You don't need a band. You don't need to call up so-and-so and tell them to, hide the coke and come to the gig, right? So
I was in bands for 30 years, and it was
cool.
It's the same with music. I mean, I started out when you could go out and play massive clubs as a band that no one's ever heard of. You could go out and play cover tunes, or now they have a different name for them now. Tributes. You could go out as a tribute band.
Yeah.
And play these massive places, but you'll inevitably end up in a bar that's a sports bar. Mm-hmm. And you're the band there, but it's a sports bar, so they start playing games.
Yeah.
It's the volume on while you're trying to play your thing.
Yeah.
So it's a similar kind of thing.
I had a set once where they had a lotto machine that every 15 seconds blasted out this really annoying sound, and asked them to turn it off, and they wouldn't turn it off. And some of those shows are better than others, I guess I could safely say.
So I saw some of your comedy, and a lot of it is about the weed, and a lot of it seems to be about Eugene. Are you able to do those jokes other places? Do people?
No. I think the clip that I sent you was more locally oriented, but I do shows all over, so I typically don't do the Eugene material while I'm out on the road.
Oh, okay.
But I do like making fun of Eugene while I'm here. I mean, we all
do.
Yeah, I mean, Eugene's definitely a weed town, so I talk about getting pulled over, and they make me put my hand in a bag of Doritos to check to see if I've been smoking. So jokes like that. My comedy, I try to focus on ironic things that everybody has to deal with.
Right.
So there's just a lot of irony out there, and I try to just point that out. And by the way, if anybody out there wants to kind of track when I'm going to be back in town, they can go to my website, jamesblamecomedy.com. And I also have a Facebook page called Eugene Comedy Crescendo on Facebook. I post all of my shows there. So if you're interested in seeing a show, just hit up one of my sites on, usually it's me and 2 or 3 other comics going up. So it's always a fun time.
Yeah, and that'll be in the show notes also. If you don't remember, there'll be links right in the show notes.
Oh, cool.
We'll definitely, always.
Very cool.
Now I lost my train of thought.
Well, I did want to mention, while you're retraining your thought, one of the things I was going to say about starting out doing comedy is, unlike other comics, I had no intention of becoming a pro. Mm-hmm. I was doing it strictly for therapy, and it was working. So that's all I cared about. I didn't really care if I ever became a pro. In fact, I remember thinking that I wasn't good enough to be a pro, and I shouldn't have any business even thinking about being a pro. And then I did an open mic here in town, and a pro comic who was touring came up to me and said, "Hey, I really like your stuff. Why don't you come and do this paid show? And it was Coburg Days out in Coburg, where they have the Antique Festival. And I went out there and did an outdoor show with a bunch of other comics, and I did really well. And that comic came up to me afterwards and said, "Hey, I'm going out on a little tour. Why don't you open for me?" And that was the first time. I was already doing open mics for probably 2 years at that point. Never did a paid show.
Wow.
And that was the first time where it kind of took me by surprise. I didn't expect to do that well. And that was the first time in my head I thought, I've been doing this for a while, and I might be good at it.
Yeah, if somebody offers you money to do it, maybe you're good at it.
Yeah. So
that's great.
So after that, then I just gained confidence and started thinking more in terms of a career at that point.
And when you say go on the road, what does that entail? Are you in your own vehicle? You're driving your car to wherever you need to go?
Oh, it could be that, or sometimes it involves a plane. It's just wherever you're going, you have to work out the logistics. Usually, I'm carpooling with another comic. We're driving to the show together. Every now and then we have to fly, but I stay mostly, so far, I've stayed mostly in California, Northern California, Oregon, and Washington State. I've done a few gigs in Montana and out a little bit further, but most of my stuff's here on the coast.
So do you need a Kleenex? Got one handy. Okay. Do you have a tight five, or is that even a thing anymore?
Yeah, it's a thing. I think all of your comedy needs to be tight, no matter how many minutes. So I'd like to think that I have a tight 35.
Well, that makes sense. Yeah.
But going up and doing 5, it's interesting now to do it now. Before, it was a struggle for me to fill 5 minutes. Now it's like riding a bike. The more you do it, the less you have to think about it. So
right.
So yeah, I'd like to think my whole set's pretty tight. I try to make it as tight as possible.
So do you have, if someone wanted you to do an hour, would you have an hour?
Yeah.
You've done that?
Yeah.
It's a long time, it seems like.
It is. And the reason that I don't do an hour or try to get jobs for an hour is, even though I have an hour's worth of material, I can do it. It's not tight enough for me, for my own personal standards.
Right.
But I've had, like, I think it was a year and a half ago, I had a booker call me up and say, "Hey, I know you were featuring, but the headliner just dropped, and I have another feature. Can you headline?" And I said, "Hey, I go, yeah, I can do it, but I don't advertise myself as a headliner." And they're like, "That's fine. Just bail me out." So I went in and did close to an hour for that show. And then there was one other show too. Last January, we had that wicked ice storm.
Yeah.
It was crazy.
7 days without power.
Yeah. And I had a show. I was in Yakima doing a feature, and I had a show in Florence, and we had to drive. Normally it takes 5 hours to drive from Yakima to Florence, or maybe 6. It took us 9.5 to get from Yakima, because we were driving on I-5 doing 30 miles an hour because the ice was so bad. So we get all the other comics dropped. We had a 2-hour show, and there were only 2 comics. So my headliner.
Oh, so you're doing an hour and a half.
My headliner goes, "Hey, I can't do an hour and a half, buddy. You're going to have to do,
an hour,
at least an hour, or 50 minutes anyway." So I went in and did my thing, and it went fine. So to answer your question, absolutely, I could headline right now, but I want to get that this is just my own personal thing, not for all other comics. I really want to get that personal self-esteem, that confidence going, where not only can I do an hour, I want to go and rock an hour. I want to go and just destroy the whole, however much time I'm up there on the stage. And I'm almost there, like I've been this last year touring with several different headliners, one of whom is Simon Kaufman. He's a headliner out of Seattle, very talented guy. And he's been really helping me along with my experience level, doing these higher end shows, doing longer sets, working with me on just little pointers here and there, little things that really do help you out. They all add up. They might not be one thing that changes your career, but add them all together, and it's made me a much better comic. So I'm gaining a lot of confidence, and I'm feeling like I said, about this time next year, hopefully I'll be doing a special, hopefully here in Eugene.
Oh, nice.
Yeah, I would do probably a 50-minute special, almost an hour, just to keep it. When you get towards once you get past 45 minutes, it's really tough, no matter how funny you are, to keep people's attention. So
I'm actually blown away when a comedy, there are certain comedians I will watch their Netflix special, usually they're the top of the comedian echelon, and I am blown away how good they are at holding the attention. I can see how much work they put into their show, and most of them talk about it because now you can hear them talk about it on podcasts all day long.
Right.
Before the special, there was several really, really big names were like, I go out in clubs for a year, or I'm going to get on and do an hour. Yeah. And this is people who are making millions doing movies and stuff.
Yeah.
But if they're going to do an hour on stage in front of cameras, it's like they go out and they work it for a year. So
really
see what bombs.
Yeah, you really have to put the work in, and a lot of people try to take shortcuts, and it really shows. The ones who try to shortcut that. So yeah, these guys who are the top names, they're usually the hardest working.
Yeah.
Usually. Not always, but
not always.
Usually they are, and the work ethic is pretty impressive. And let's face it, people, if you're driving in an ice storm to make it to a show on the coast, late, risking your life, obviously you've got something invested into the art form. So,
and it really, I think it took me a while to realize how much. I guess that's part of why I don't do stand-up. Is I still would like to just try it, but the amount of work that you need to get good. It's not like maybe Jonathan Winters could get up on stage and start talking. Maybe there's a couple guys in the world who were that way, but it's not many, and it's always. I'm always amazed when I see how much work goes into it, and
there's also, besides your comedy, there's also a lot of networking involved in order just to get stage time, to get booked. Because even if you're good, it's really difficult to get booked. Like I said, I used to own a business before I started doing comedy, and comedy's much more daunting than owning my own business. Like, it's one of the toughest businesses I've ever been involved in, and the competition is so fierce. And all of the competition, they don't want to see you. So it makes it tough to climb the ranks, no matter who you are or where you come from.
Like you said at the beginning, who wouldn't want to be a comedian?
Yeah.
Like, everyone wants to be a comedian now. I think the best part of being a comedian has got to be, I've always thought this, someone says, "What are you, a comedian?"
What, you comedian something? It's like, yeah, I am, MFR. That's right. I can take privileges that you don't have. The best part of comedy for me is just walking up on the stage. That is the reward. Mm-hmm. Like all the other stuff that goes into it is just, it doesn't compare.
It's true with any kind of performance, I think, because I do performances. I do a weekly live thing that I wouldn't. The only reason I do it is because there's people there watching. And there's kind of more people every day.
You attention whore, you.
Totally.
You are an attention whore.
Big time. I look at it sometimes and I go, what am I doing?
Oh, my goodness. I'm scheduling you for some therapy as soon as we're done with this podcast. No, there's something about performing in public where I guess you have to be kind of an attention whore. I guess I am. There's something about it that's magical for me. And I play music too. So if I connect, whether it's with the guitar or whether it's with comedy, that's the goal. It's a connection that I can't get anywhere off the stage, that I can get on the stage. I can't get that anywhere.
Right.
So that's why I put up with all the crap to get to that stage. There's a lot of crap that you have to deal with. Jealous, comics who are gaslighting you, bookers that just they don't want to, they're so busy, they have so many comics that they can't find a spot for you on their stage. You put up with all kinds of stuff, and man, when I step on the stage, it makes it all worth it. It's truly a privilege and an honor for me to be on the stage, connecting with other people and also working with the talent that I'm working with.
That's got to be really fun to meet all the other talent and people doing it. And so by talking to you, I'm taking it you don't have any kind of representation or
an agent
or anything like that.
Oh no, oh my gosh, no. There's like a mountain of marketing that you could do as a performer, and no performer ever has enough marketing. I'm one of those older comics, and I'm kind of questioning how far I want to take it. Do I really want to go that far where I have an agent? And here's the thing, like I've always said to myself, I'm having a lot of fun doing it. And when it stops being fun, I really don't want to do it anymore because I'm not doing it for the money. It has to be fun.
Right.
If I was like really money driven, I would have already had a special and reels out online and a whole marketing ship, that I've launched. So I'm having a lot of fun. I'm getting a lot out of it just personally. And for now, that's all I really want. If it ends up being more than that, if I end up headlining or if I end up, doing bigger film work or whatever, that would be great. But the requirement is it has to be fun. I can't get stressed out about trying to get a gig or trying to get, other work out there. By the way, I've done some film work too, just to mention it. I've been on several comedy short films for Delta Ponds Productions right here in Eugene for the Lane County Film Organization here. And you can look up some of my films on Delta Ponds Productions. I did one last year called, 2 years ago called Time to Come Clean in Eugene. And then more recently, I just finished one up called Who Saw Them Aliens.
I saw that.
Oh, did you see it?
I saw the previews for that. I don't think I've.
And I don't know when this podcast is going to air, but they are showing it at the Art House here in Eugene this Sunday.
It won't be out that soon, but they can still see it on YouTube.
Yeah. It's on Delta Ponds Productions. You can look it up on YouTube. Check it out. They're funny comedy shorts. I did several of them. Some of them are just cameo roles, and then others I have, more lines in. They're a lot of fun, and the producer who does a lot of those, Mike Schwab, is a great guy who does a lot of work here in Eugene. He has a bunch of other films out there. Should check it out.
Yeah, I've worked with him before, and he also has great crews. I mean, on top of he's a fun guy, and I did a film with him. I forgot what it was called, about the shrink that shrinks, but
they're funny films. He's a great guy. Every time I do one of those productions, it's just a riot. Like, I have a great time. Sometimes I can't do them because I'm out on the road. He's really good about asking me. But when I have the time to do it, it's a great experience. And, you know, for a day, I can fantasize that I'm actually a movie star or something when I'm really not.
Well, it's fun to pretend.
Yeah,
that's what makes
I can live that life in my own mind, even if no one else is coming along for the ride,
You're
man.
Already pretending. Exactly.
What films have you done, other than the one you mentioned?
I've done literally dozens.
Nice.
I have done the horror 72-hour horror film festival for like 5 years. Sometimes
cool.
Having a part, sometimes just sitting on the couch and saying one line. All those are with Nick Blacketer, who was on this show, and another the crews that come together are just incredible.
Yeah, a lot of talent. That's
talent. And then I was just actually hired to do a film, which still shocks me.
Good for you.
It's a short called the Craigslist Vampire. That is all. It's already kind of, for my films, it's kind of taking off because the guy who did it teaches editing. So he does these shorts in order to teach editing. And
nice.
It's just really fun. He's got, again, crew, very talented, like a 3-person crew, and it looks very good. You know, nice equipment. And again, I might do, this weekend is that festival. My phone's tied up, but I might be doing one. I'm supposed to be doing one. He might tell me last minute.
Well, that is exciting. And while we're on the subject, I just want to mention that I did produce a documentary film in 2015 called Coping with Comedy. And it was a half-hour documentary basically showing how some comics use comedy to deal with depression. So we had like 5 different comics on the documentary, all talking about why they're doing it. And it's just kind of like a documentary type situation. You can look that up online on YouTube, Coping with Comedy by James Blame. And also, I have a script for a non-documentary, just a straight-up comedy short film that I've been working on since the pandemic. I'd really like to produce it, but, you know, I mean, it takes time and money. So if anybody out there listening has both of those in excess, please let me know.
Well, it's great. You do have the resource here in Eugene with the Lane County filmmaker.
Yeah, I do. All I need, Joel, is $5,000 to go along with the resources. So I'm thinking about, there are funding, online funding avenues.
Oh, yeah.
To get funding for films. So I'm actually, and you know, it's actually to pay some of the actors and to cover some of the expenses. Even in a short comedy film, there is expenses. So.
And the cool thing about that is that, you know, you never know how much money you can raise. You never know how much interest you'll get going on to the Indiegogo or whichever site you choose.
Yeah.
Sometimes people will come along and just plunk down the money that you're asking for. And I've heard that. I've never tried to raise money, but I've gone to a couple of times.
I think I just got aroused when you said that, when people just plunk down the money.
I often go to sites, well, this particular person is really good at promotion, but I go to his fundraisers and it's like, oh, Jesus, he's 10,000 over what he was looking for. Oh my God, I'm going to save my $3, but that's awesome.
You know, I'm really inexperienced at pitching for a funding. So, you know, I'll have to get familiar with what I need to put out there so that people would be willing to invest. It would be great. if I did get it done, because the script has gotten really great reviews from the professionals that do much more work out there than I do. And they've all come back with varying degrees of, yeah, this needs work, but I like it.
Right.
All of it's been positive, though. And actually, after the podcast, if you're interested in taking a look at the script, I'd send it to you. And
Sure.
you can take a look. It's only like 4 pages. It's not too much of a stretch.
Yeah, you should go. Do you go to those meet and greets for the lame Lincoln?
I have.
Yeah,
I have.
Good resource for checking into. I know some people there have raised funds.
I think the best way from talking to people is to go ahead and hit a few of the sites. And I'm told
That too, yeah.
I'm told that there are better sites than Kickstarter that specifically are set up to fund films, where Kickstarter funds everything.
Right.
You can fund anything on Kickstarter. Right. So I'm optimistic. It's just one of those things where I'm on the road a lot doing comedy, so I got to kind of squeeze it in.
Yeah, I've gone to I can't even remember what I was thinking of funding before, something. And I went to Kickstarter and I was like, oh, wow, there's 10 of these now. Yeah. That was a while ago, so there's probably 20 of them now. And yeah, there's probably one that's just like right in your niche, right where,
Yeah. So yeah, it's just a matter of me getting the bandwidth to put that together. So that's kind of exciting, actually. If I could produce another film, it'd be the second one under my belt. It'd be good. It'd be good for my credits and everything.
Right. And it's fun.
Yeah.
That is fun to do. Producing's a lot of work.
It is.
My problem is I want to produce films, direct films, but I want to do it with millions of dollars. So I don't think that's going to work out right now.
What? Why not? I mean, you got some spare change in your dresser. I mean,
sure.
Just scrape that stuff together, a couple million,
Of course I do.
Only take you another three or four lifetimes.
Yeah, that's all. That's all it is. No.
Yeah, my sites are much less ambitious. I'll maybe after this next one, I'll go for the $1 million production.
It is mind-boggling what a small production costs now, and
yeah,
an independent film, if it's going to be released, wide release, is millions of dollars now.
Yeah,
just because of crew costs, and if you're going to pay a union crews and union actors and stuff, it's really high. Or you can do it for free. Like a lot of people do here, which amazes me. It's cool. Or, like you're saying, you at least pay the actor something. That's nice.
Well, one thing that's nice about the 21st century is you can bypass Hollywood. We all can get film gear, and we can all get it online, where you don't have to deal with Hollywood distribution. It's still a daunting a task, but at least there's an avenue that you have as an independent where you didn't have it before.
Right. It's there. And I'm still waiting I still haven't seen this because I don't consider Blair Witch Project a film, but that's a whole nother thing. I still haven't seen anyone come out with their iPhone, other than making ads for iPhone, and actually make a movie, because it is possible now.
Yeah.
You could literally do it, but I've not seen anyone that has, been able to do that and actually had a good enough idea, had good enough direction and stuff to get that film released wide. I've seen a lot of bad ones.
Yeah.
Not necessarily on an iPhone, but whatever, with not spending millions of dollars.
Yeah. Well, one thing about the online content is, it's there, but it's also very flooded, so it's hard to get noticed,
It's flooded, and it's not all, it is not necessarily great, because I can put stuff online, and some of it is amazing, but it's not necessarily going to get noticed.
Yeah.
It's not necessarily going to pay you back if you spend even a small amount on your film, but it's great that it's there, really. It is a possibility. Yeah, absolutely. Well, we got off on the film world there.
Well, I am in the film industry in a very ancillary type of situation, but I do play around the edges. And my last film that I was in, I got more lines than I usually do, which meant that I actually had to act instead of just doing these cameos. And I'm like, dang, I was forgetting my lines, and I'm like, I think comedy is probably a little better medium for me than trying to remember these long lines. But I got through it. I got through it. And you can see the film now. It's already out. It's Who Saw Them Aliens.
Who Saw Them Aliens?
Yeah, on YouTube.
It's difficult. I see a lot of people who don't care about using actors, and I usually can tell. There's some people they can do it because they're a natural, or if the director... Films are all about the director. I mean, James Cameron made Arnold Schwarzenegger.
Yeah.
Like, he made him because he said, if this guy didn't say anything, he'll be amazing. And, he barely spoke in that movie.
That's the same technique they use with me. If we could just keep him from saying something, he'd be pretty good. Well, what blew me away was I was the most inexperienced actor on this last show, and I really noticed the difference between professional actors who were on the set with me, and it was intimidating.
I have been acting since I was in junior high, so a long time. I didn't act much when I was playing music because I moved to LA, and acting there was like, well, you can imagine. It was the biggest competition in the...
Everybody wants to do that.
Everyone wants to be an actor, and I enjoyed my meeting actors. I enjoyed watching people work, but it was like I did not want to get into that. I'm not competitive enough. I guess I'll just put it that way. I'm just not competitive.
Yeah.
My skin is really thin. It's
right.
thick at all. But where was I going with that? It is hard. Like this last film I did, very short film. I think it's 3 minutes. I had a fair amount of lines. And when I watched it, I was like, well, that performance is all the director, and he did a great job. Because I know what I did on the day.
Right.
And I looked at that and I went, yep, I love that edit. I know.
Well, getting a little bit back to what you said earlier about the thick skin part, that's something that's required for these highly competitive situations, whether it be acting or comedy. Man, I've really had to develop a thick skin. Well, I remember when I first started out, I was taking it too personally.
Right.
And I had to kind of stop myself and say, these people are being mean, not because of what I did. It's just I'm there.
That's a very good point.
I happened to be there. And so I stopped taking it personal, and actually my comedy career started doing much better when I stopped.
Oh, that's great.
And I would, to this day, I mean, something always gets through to you, but to this day, I ignore most of what I see on social posts. All the...
that's a really good idea.
Everybody's been there, right? You're on Facebook or Insta, and somebody's just gaslighting the hell out of you, and you're like, what did I do? Well, it turns out you didn't do anything. You're just
there.
You're somewhere where that person wants to be, and they are, and they're upset that you got there and they didn't. That's all. Yeah. So now I take it much better than I used to take it. I'm getting better at it.
And that's true in the acting world too. With when you go to an audition, people think that you're competing with all the other actors, and it's not true at all. I've heard this from many different producers and directors. All you're doing is showing them that you could do that part, and they're hoping that you can't.
Yeah,
because they don't want to keep looking for people.
Right.
It's a totally different way of doing it. You just do what is going to work for you, and if that works for them, great.
Yeah, I think it's I think it's misplaced anger. Like, you look at other people and putting something on them that's really more has to do with your own personal situation.
Right. Yeah, big time. Big time. Well, hey, let's wrap it up there. I
Okay.
really appreciate you coming on.
Hey, this has been really fun, Joel, and I'm very excited to find out that you're involved in film, and perhaps our paths will cross in the film community.
I thought we actually did a film together. We might have been extras on a film.
Might have.
It's possible.
Might have.
Anyway,
Yeah.
I'll just have to say, this has been, were you still talking? This is Joel Albrecht, and I've been talking to James Blaine, Duhaime. James Blaine, I like that one.
James Blame.
And you'll there'll be some links in the comments if you're on YouTube, in the show notes if you're on any of the other podcast media. I hope you liked it. Definitely follow the show. He asked me how many followers I have at the beginning of the show, and I don't follow how many followers I have. But I hope you're liking the show. We'll be back as soon as I can. And perhaps we'll have another celebrity on next time. Thanks a lot.
Peace out.